Chapter 9, Two Big Things at Heiress Residence. Madame Heiress fainted from anger when she heard the news. When she woke up, the first thing she wanted to do was to immediately request for Louis and Cynthia to cancel their engagement. But after thinking about it, she realized that Louis didn't have any outstanding qualities. If the Heiress Group still wanted to enter the automobile industry in the future, they would have to rely on the Carter Group, so this matter was temporarily put aside. At this moment, in Tommy's office, Sharon learned about everything that had just happened and admired Tommy's ability to handle things. "I'm afraid many companies are trying to poach someone like you." Sharon looked at Tommy with a smile. "I like your style of doing things. From today onward, you can come to me directly if you need anything. I'll do my best to satisfy your needs." "Thank you, CEO Sharon," Tommy said indifferently. He needed some time to understand this newly appointed CEO. "Also, you have to help me do two more things," Sharon nodded and said. "Please go ahead, CEO." "First, announce the appointment of the Sullivan Group's new CEO, but don't reveal my identity. Just make a mention that my last name is Charlotte." At first, Sharon was still debating whether to use the surname Xavier or not, but when she thought about how her mother hadn't changed her surname even until her death, she also had to consider whether she should accept the surname. "The second thing is that our company will invest $2 billion on the ground floor to build a national gymnasium. We will start the bidding at the same time, so any construction company in the city can participate in the bidding. Since Wallace wants to start a construction project, I'll go with the flow. Madame Heiress dreams of collaboration with the Sullivan Group and for it to become the backer of the Heiress Group. If Wallace succeeds, he will definitely secure his position within the Heiress family, and those who want to harm him will naturally desist. Now that the Sullivan Group is mine, I have to include my husband in some serious planning." As soon as the two pieces of news were released, the entire New York exploded with discussion. Madame Heiress only understood what had happened when she heard that the Sullivan Group had changed its CEO. It's no wonder that the Carter Group was kicked out of the partnership list by them. It seems that the new CEO is young and impetuous and doesn't think highly of small companies like the Carter Group. However, who is the CEO? She is so generous to have bought a billion-dollar company just like that. Even the richest man wouldn't do that, but is there anyone with this last name on the list of the wealthiest? If my precious grandson can win the other party's favor. Madame Heiress instantly became excited. It seemed like she was going to put the divorce on her agenda for the day. At that moment, the entire city was in an uproar. Everyone was looking forward to having a collaboration with this mysterious CEO or hoping that their son would catch her eye and have a chance to marry her. Other than that, the Sullivan Group's project bidding shocked the entire construction industry. Everyone was eager to be selected so that they could achieve a breakthrough in their career. Moreover, the National Gymnasium was worth $2 billion. Just a portion of it would be a considerable income. All the companies were getting restless. The big companies were working hard to prepare the bidding materials, while the small companies were working together to carry out the bidding activities. Madame Heiress naturally couldn't give up on such an opportunity. She had to make use of this opportunity to make the Heiress Group earn a fortune, so how could she not seize such an excellent opportunity? If the Heiress Group won the bid, their lives would be much easier. That night, Madame Heiress immediately instructed everyone to be present for a family meeting at home. They had to make new breakthroughs in their business, so everyone had to be present including Sharon. Glancing at the time, Sharon went home anxiously. If she were any slower, she would be late. She knew that Madame Heiress was going to say something about how to make Wallace benefit from the Sullivan Group's construction project, so she wanted to use this opportunity to help her husband. She didn't expect to hear Nicole's laughter as soon as she stepped into the room, who said mockingly, "Oh my, sister-in-law is really busy. However, I admire you too. I didn't expect you to be so thick-skinned that you even made Grandma unhappy. Plus, You're a housewife. Why are you late? What nonsense are you talking about? Grandma asked the entire Heiress family to be present. Sharon is my wife, your sister-in-law, so, of course, she's from the Heiress family. Wallace frowned and glared at Nicole coldly. Third uncle and third aunt didn't pay much attention to you when you were young, so they neglected your education, and you learned to talk nonsense. Chapter 10, Family Meeting. Louis sneered. Why are you pretending to be a good person now? Sharon isn't even a member of the Heiress family, she's just a piece of trash. Sharon tugged at Wallace's shirt and whispered, "It's okay, he's still young. Don't lower yourself to his level. Let's hear what Grandma has to say first." Only then did Wallace quiet down, but his expression was extremely bad. He ignored Louis, and for a moment, he wanted only to leave with Sharon. On the other hand, Nicole almost laughed out loud. She couldn't believe that her two brothers would actually start a dogfight. In less than 5 minutes, Madame Heiress arrived, and the family meeting officially began. Sharon originally wanted to find an inconspicuous place to sit down, but without notice, Wallace pulled out a chair for her to sit beside him. "Thank you," Sharon said very softly, and her ears turned red. "I just want you to stop being so embarrassed." Wallace's tone was cold and indifferent. Madame Heiress sat down at the head of the table, clapped her hands, and stated seriously, "The Heiress Group has been waiting for a chance, and recently, a chance appeared for us to enter other industries. We're about to realize this dream." Madame Heiress was extremely excited. She raised her voice and said, "The bidding for the Sullivan Group's project is very important to us. Whoever can get this document will get 1/3 of the Heiress Group's assets. Plus, this is the first project after the Sullivan Group's new CEO takes office. This is a very important opportunity for the Heiress Group. Moreover, the new CEO is a woman. If we can work with them and leave a good impression on them, it will definitely help the Heiress Group in the future." Even though Madame Heiress had used 1/3 of the Heiress Group's assets as bait, nobody present responded enthusiastically. After all, it had been more than a year or two since the Heiress Group expressed their interest to collaborate with the Sullivan Group, but they hadn't received any response from them for a long time. How could there suddenly be a new opportunity even when the new CEO took over? "What's wrong with all of you? Are you mute? Don't you have the confidence to clinch this project? We want to enter the construction industry. Don't you have any motivation?" Nicole was playing with her phone with her head lowered, and Louis's mind wasn't on work at all. Instead, he was thinking about which young model he should date tonight. The elders had already reached a certain age and didn't want to take any more risks, so they didn't respond to Madame Heiress. Madame Heiress kept nodding her head. Okay. Since you all can't do it, I'll say this today, whoever can secure the collaboration with the Sullivan Group will be the president of the Heiress Group." Everyone was stunned. After Mr. Heiress died, Madame Heiress had been monopolizing the entire Heiress Group's work. No matter how much she trusted Wallace, she didn't let him directly take over the core operations of the Heiress Group. What she was doing now was a clear indication of who would become the president and inherit the Heiress Group in the future. Using this position as a reward was undoubtedly a test of one's ability. It could be seen that Madame Heiress was going to use the collaboration with the Sullivan Group as an opportunity to see through the capabilities of a few people. Such a temptation was indeed very attractive to them, but it also meant that this collaboration opportunity was hard to get. Zachary glanced at Louis, but he knew that the latter didn't have the ability to do so. If he wanted to work with the Sullivan Group, Wallace was probably the only one who could succeed. But no matter how capable Wallace was, the Sullivan Group might not give him a chance. After all, even if the Heiress Group's veterans went personally, the other party might not give them face, let alone collaborate with them. Sharon secretly observed her spouse who was beside her and found that he was expressionless, making her a little confused. Madame Heiress didn't expect her children and grandchildren to be so cowardly, and she couldn't help but say, "Are all of you just going to sit and do nothing? As descendants of the Heiress family, all of you don't have any backbone at all. How can I be at ease?" Then, Madame Heiress's eyes met with the eyes of Louis's father. "Zachary, I believe you can do this well." Zachary laughed dryly and replied, "Mom, this matter isn't easy to deal with. The Carter Group has just been disqualified from the collaboration list. You know my current relationship with the Carter Group, so I definitely won't be able to seize this opportunity even if I go. Trash. Have you been infected by that garbage, Sharon? You're even more useless than her." Madame Heiress slammed the table angrily, but she knew that he was right. However, this is an opportunity that only occurs once in a blue moon. It has been more than 10 years since the Heiress Group has entered a new industry. If we are to go back to our previous industries, nobody knows what will happen. Therefore, no matter how difficult this opportunity is to obtain, I will not give up so easily. Chapter 11, Standout. Madame Heiress was a little surprised. She didn't expect her second son Zachary, who was the first person to get involved with the construction industry, to not happily accept this task and instead say such discouraging words. Zachary felt even worse. The opportunity to inherit the family business was right in front of him, but he could only let it slip by. However, this was an impossible task as he had a close relationship with the Carter Group. Perhaps the Sullivan Group would chase him out upon hearing his name. At that time, if he were to offend the Sullivan Group like the Carter Group had, he would be the one losing face instead. Looking at how the Carter Group was being ridiculed, Zachary decided that he wouldn't agree to this matter no matter what. Gazing at Zachary, Madame Heiress shook her head helplessly before asking, "What about the others? Could it be that none of the Heiress family's children can stand up now?" Sharon gently tugged at her significant other's sleeve and said softly, "Why don't you give it a try? I think you can." Wallace rubbed his thumb and index finger together. "No, the Sullivan Group won't collaborate with a startup company like us. I think you can definitely negotiate this collaboration successfully. Why don't you give it a try?" Sharon's eyes flashed with anticipation for her husband. Seeing his wife suddenly become so interested, Wallace couldn't help but ask, "Really?" Sharon smiled and nodded vigorously. She said confidently, "I have confidence in you. You will definitely succeed." Wallace didn't expect Sharon to be so sure that he would succeed. He didn't know how to respond. Sharon covered his hand excitedly. "Believe me. I think there's no problem with you at all. You can only realize your dreams by seizing this opportunity. Nobody in the family will dare to harm you then." She knew that her spouse rarely fired old employees, but Madame Heiress wasn't that kind of person. As long as there were new people, old employees would be fired no matter how loyal they were. This was another matter that probably only Wallace would have the chance to investigate after he assumed the position of president. For some reason, Wallace believed her words. He raised his hand and stood up. "Grandma, leave this to me. I want to give it a try." Wallace's words shocked everyone. Is he crazy? Even if it is to please Grandma, it shouldn't be at this time. Isn't there only one way out for him after saying something like this? Zachary and Louis's family were delighted to hear about this. He is a stubborn person who insists on doing these things. Why should we stop him? The Sullivan Group was the biggest company in New York. They wouldn't have their eyes on a small project that the Heiress Group initiated. No matter who tried to negotiate for them, they would never succeed. Louis couldn't help but mock, "Brother, have you been infected by that stupid wife of yours? You actually think you can get the opportunity to collaborate with them?" Nicole also sneered. "I wonder what identity Big Brother is going to use to bid for it? If you use the Heiress Group's name, you'll cause us to lose face. It might not be worth it for us." When Zachary heard this, he quickly echoed, "That's right. If you're chased out by the Sullivan Group, we'll become a laughingstock like the Carter Group. Zachary, don't worry. I have confidence in this matter, and I will definitely make the appropriate arrangements. As for the other matters, since I've stood up, I already have plans. Everyone, don't worry. I won't give outsiders the chance to mock our family. Actually, Wallace had his own plans. Since Sharon isn't valued at home, I will have the right to tell them not to target her if I can assume a position of power. Most importantly, Sharon can straighten her back and gain our parents' approval. However, he didn't expect so many people to look down on him. This made him a little dazed. Wallace glanced at Sharon, who was beside him. I must have been bewitched by her just now, so I stood up inexplicably. Now that things have come to this, I can only brace myself and go forward. Perhaps good luck will really come to me. What they didn't expect was for Madame Heiress to look at Nicole angrily. What does a little girl like you know? I asked several times just now, but nobody came forward. Finally, my eldest grandson, who I think has a slight chance of winning the bid, stood up. This group of people is dampening his enthusiasm. Chapter 12, a bet. Although Madame Heiress didn't like Sharon, she still treated Wallace quite well. Oh right, I remember that Crystal has a deep relationship with the Sullivan Group. If they vouch for you, you could do more with less. I believe you won't disappoint me like some other people. As she said this, the old lady glanced at the people around her. She was reprimanding them, saying that they would only create trouble for her. This was especially so for Zachary, who she had thought highly of in the beginning. But now, it seemed like he was really useless. Madame Heiress coughed lightly. Go ahead and do it then. Don't listen to those who don't dare to answer. This time, we'll let Wallace handle our collaboration with the Sullivan Group. Wallace nodded and said calmly, Don't worry, Grandma. I'll do my best. I won't embarrass the Heiress family. Zachary glanced at Wallace's father, who was silent, and cursed him in his heart. The latter was a matrilocal son-in-law and didn't have much status in the Heiress family. However, his sister was too strong, and he couldn't shake her position even after so many years. How about we give it our all? If we fail, our family will lose face. Sharon hated it when people from the Heiress family acted like this. They are all hypocritical and don't seem to be family at all. They are even worse than enemies. It's rare that Wallace didn't get led astray. Zachary, what do you mean? Do you think we aren't qualified to work with the Sullivan Group? Zachary didn't expect Sharon to dare speak up at such an important meeting, and she even questioned him rudely. Seeing that Madame Heiress's expression wasn't good, Zachary quickly explained, That's not what I meant. I'm just worried that Wallace is a junior who can't control the situation. Surprisingly, Sharon smiled. I believe that Wallace will definitely be able to negotiate successfully, and he doesn't need Crystal's help. Interesting. I say, you cheap B*****, you actually used your inexperience to command Wallace. Nicole couldn't help but laugh. If you really believe in Wallace that much, why don't you make a bet with me? Nicole, what are you doing now? Wallace frowned. He could tell at a glance that Nicole was definitely trying to make things difficult for his wife. Okay, what do you want to bet? Sharon's words shocked everyone present. When did this piece of trash become so bold to speak to us like this? If my brother doesn't manage to get the contract with his own capabilities, then you should kneel on the ground and kowtow to me 3 times in front of the whole family, loudly proclaiming that you're nothing. After that, divorce my brother and leave the Heiress family with nothing. If my brother gets the contract, I'll kneel and kowtow to you. From then on, I'll follow your every command. What do you think? It's settled then. The whole family will bear witness here. If anyone goes back on their word, their parents will die, their children will be filial, their husbands will be disloyal, and their elders will die early, Sharon said calmly. Hearing the bet between the two, Louis couldn't help but laugh out loud. You trash, you are courting death. I didn't expect you to trust my brother so much. Everyone was happy to see this at first, but after Sharon spoke, everyone glanced at Madame Heiress. Astonishingly, Madame Heiress didn't seem angry at all. In her opinion, it would be great if she could use this matter to break them up. On the other hand, Nicole was surprised. Sharon has made such a serious vow, and I don't know how to resolve it. In any case, we definitely can't go back on our word. Nicole was afraid that her grandmother would take her anger out on her because she was the one who proposed the bet, making it seem like she was cursing her. Okay. Sharon looked at Nicole's smug expression. She didn't seem to realize that she had dug a hole for herself since she felt that she wouldn't lose. Nicole didn't expect her sister-in-law to be so straightforward, and she was even more pleased with herself. Then, I'll wait for my whole family to bear witness to your divorce and for you to kowtow to me. Wallace was also a little shocked. Even if Sharon believes in me, she shouldn't make such a bet. He frowned slightly at the woman beside him, but he didn't expect that when their eyes met, Sharon actually ignored the doubt in his eyes. Currently, Madame Heiress didn't care about the bet. The only thing she cared about was whether she could enter a collaboration with the Sullivan Group. If they could successfully do so, she wouldn't care even if Wallace and Sharon couldn't get a divorce this time. Chapter 13, Crystal's hospitalization. I've also seen the Sullivan Group's bidding information. You only have a month to close the deal. If you succeed, I'll keep my word. Madame Heiress looked at her eldest grandson. Since it's decided, we'll leave it here for today. We'll discuss the rest later. Meeting adjourned. When most of the people had left, Wallace's mother, June, rushed toward Sharon angrily. She raised her hand and slapped the latter without warning before blurting out, "You little slut, you vicious whore. I saw everything just now. You were the one who encouraged Wallace to stand up and agree to what the old lady said. You too, why did you listen to a piece of trash like her and agree to this matter so carelessly?" Wallace's father, James, also scolded Sharon. I've never seen such a vicious little girl like you. You're just a piece of trash, and you've really gotten my son into deep trouble. I don't care. Nicole only said that you couldn't go to Crystal to help you, so I'll go find her. At that time, I'll see who can stop you. If Crystal doesn't help connect you to the relevant parties, we definitely won't be able to get the Sullivan Group to consider us. When that time comes, this piece of trash will have to kneel down in front of Nicole, and they will definitely use this as an excuse to make a fuss. Where will I put my face then? June was so angry that her whole body was trembling, and she blamed all the problems on Sharon. Sharon was trembling all over. She pressed her arms against her body and bit her lips tightly. Then, she said in a very soft voice, "Even so. As long as Wallace can negotiate this contract successfully, all the problems will be solved." Heh, you're really short-sighted. Do you know what kind of organization the Sullivan Group is? Why would they easily give out the contract? If you don't have a strong background and ability, how are you going to negotiate with them? Moreover, everyone knows that to work with the Sullivan Group, one must use connections. Our family has never worked with anyone related to the Sullivan Group before, so how would they take a fancy to Wallace? I think there's definitely nothing wrong with Wallace. The other party will definitely like him. As she spoke, Sharon looked at her husband. This cold-looking man had no expression on his face at all. You think so? June wished she could give her daughter-in-law a slap and mock her at one side. If you have the ability, go and become the Sullivan Group's boss then. You're a useless piece of trash who still dares to boast here. Get out today. I get angry just looking at you. June pointed at the door, signaling Sharon to leave immediately. Wallace didn't say a word. Sharon laughed in her heart. Yes, why would he make his mother angry because of me? Thinking of this, Sharon didn't stay any longer and turned to leave. Let's go to the hospital to accompany Uncle Smith tonight? When she thought of that old man who was always smiling, Sharon unconsciously felt at ease. She slept at his bedside until late at night. Sharon woke up with a start. Uncle Smith was thirsty and wanted to drink water. After waiting for the elevator for a long time, Sharon decided to take the stairs. As if she felt someone staring at her, Sharon raised her head slightly, and her gaze met Wallace's. The light in the stairs was dim, and his slender figure stood there like a statue. A pair of chestnut-colored eyes shone with an inquisitive light, and his thin lips curved into a devilish smile the moment he saw her. Together with his raised black-colored eyebrows, he gave off an aura of authority that was hard to reject, with a tint of coldness. Sharon was obviously stunned. Why is he here at this time? Surely he isn't here to look for me? Why are you still here? Crystal just woke up, don't let the smell of smoke choke her. What are you standing there for? June rushed in from the side, so nervous that she didn't even notice that Sharon was there. She dragged Wallace away from the scene. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Crystal instantly put down her phone. Crystal, Wallace was too worried about you just now, so he went to ask the doctor about the situation. You have to take care of yourself. June smiled like a blooming chrysanthemum. It was my fault today. When I heard about the Sullivan Group's project bidding, I knew that Wallace would definitely take over. Hence, I rushed over, wanting to give him some ideas and help him out. I didn't expect myself to be so useless. I walked a few steps and fainted. It's not your fault. You're anemic, yet you're worried about our family. June was so touched that she held Crystal's hand. If you ask Auntie, you're our lucky star. You've helped Auntie a lot this time. You're so much better than that Sharon.